Susan Siegel, I'm the incumbent supervisor in Yorktown, and I'm running for a second term.
Okay. Describe the role of the town supervisor.
Wow, that could be a mouthful, that could be a half hour. Supervisor is the chief executive officer of the town, basically, with the exception of the clerk and the highway superintendent, who have very limited functions. I'm the only full-time elected official. It's my job to oversee a $50 million budget and to oversee the operations of all the town departments except highway superintendent and the highway department and town clerk, which are overseen by separately elected officials. I have to work closely with all department heads. They manage their departments day to day. I have to oversee them, work with them, facilitate their work, kind of nudge them a little to be creative and innovative and find more ways to be more efficient. I also am the leader of the town board. While I'm one of 5 votes, it's my responsibility as supervisor to set the agenda, draft legislation, new policies, explain them to the board, also convey information to the board because I'm there full time. It's really a 24/7 type of a job. Councilmen are part-time, so they rely on the supervisor to keep them up to date and give them the information they need to help them make decisions. I'm the front line when people come and have issues and complaints and concerns. They typically come to a supervisor. I have to weed them out, sort it out, send them to the correct department heads, and try to deal with their issues. Sometimes the issues are simple, only one homeowner. Sometimes one complaint is a symptom of a major problem that might rise to the level of bringing it to the town board. So it's very varied. Any given day I could deal with 20, 30 different topics. It constantly changes every 10 minutes.
What do you bring to that position?
I bring a knowledge of town government. I think that was my strongest point in 2009, and that has been reflected in the job I've done. That's why the Republican Town Committee selected me. They selected me in 2009 because they knew about my background knowing town government. They knew that I had solid ideas for streamlining and making government more efficient. They were right, the voters supported me in 2009. That's what I've done because that's what I said I would do. Promises made, promises kept. Went back to the Republican Party Town Committee in 2011, time goes fast, and I said, I've started things, I've implemented many changes, I need 2 more years to institutionalize those reforms, which have saved over $1 million of taxpayer money. I need 2 more years I have a long list of other issues that have been identified. They said yes, they interviewed other candidates who wanted the Republican nod. They selected me, and I think that's the endorsement that I have, and that's what I bring to the voters. I bring a solid record of achievement. We have saved over $800,000 in cutting expenditures. We've actually raised over $800,000 of new revenue. Okay, brought in non-tax revenue, simply $500,000 by selling town-owned property that we didn't need. We had 2 houses that the town owned that squatters were living in. We sold that, we put revenue back in our coffers, and now we have 2 properties on the tax rolls. I was just looking at a website today. We are selling 19 vehicles and pieces of equipment that we don't need. Instead of just putting a little ad in the newspaper and putting it, letting people in town know about it and getting maybe a few $1,000s or a few $100s, it's online, it has broad distribution. I looked today, the total prices are now up to $58,000. And we have about, I think 2 more weeks to go before the auction closes. Some of them are, surprising to me in terms of what we can get. But that's a reform that I did and what I want to continue to do.
Okay. So you keep referring to, people knew before 2009 what you were doing for the town and everything like that. And you're saying, your experience in town government. Explain what your experience was and what were you doing prior to 2009?
Well, my experience in town government actually goes back to 1970 when I moved into Yorktown and I joined the League of Women Voters. And I worked my way up to being chairman of the local government committee and president of the league for many years. And I was the observer for the league to town government, to town board, and also to planning and zoning boards. So I knew and understood the operations of these things. Fast forward many, many years, I'm a 41-year resident in Yorktown. For the 2 years prior to my election, 2008 to 2009, I attended virtually every town board meeting. I saw what was happening. I created an organization, co-founded the Citizens for an Informed Yorktown. I used to do extensive write-ups of what happened in the minutes, much, much more detailed than the official town board minutes. I had many people who were reading it. I used to watch, my on the web, the web traffic. Oh, now I know what's happening in town board because I could cover everything. I made frequent statements about problems with uncollected taxes, the use of open space, that we were making parkland designations for postage stamp size parcels. I talked about how we weren't purchasing our insurance. We weren't using competitive quotes for our insurance. I talked about problems in the workers' compensation problem. I talked about the fact that we wasted $100,000 to buy temporary trailers for our parks department because we didn't spend $20,000 to fix a leaking roof. I just went through a host of these, and I was aware of these. I was aware that we were purchasing either supplies or services without competitive bids. So when I came into office, I knew where to start from day one. That's why I told the department heads on our very first staff meeting, we were instituting a purchase order system. And that started on March 1st. By the time, and then I also called in the auditor. 2 days after I was elected, I wrote to the New York State Controller's Office and I said I would like a risk assessment of the town of Yorktown. I had suspicions, but I didn't know the full extent of the financial controls. And lo and behold, the audit confirmed what in my gut I knew. And by the time the final report came out, 80% of the recommendations had already been implemented. And I think that's a testament to what I knew to start with, what I knew had to be done, and very shortly we have a few small things that we will be cleaning up and implementing the recommendations. That's the background of what I brought. I was also a businesswoman. I had a publishing company for several years. I knew what it meant to do competitive bidding. Okay? When I had my books printed, I knew who I wanted, who was my preferred printer, but I got 3 or 4 quotes. And when my preferred printer didn't come in with the lowest bid, I picked up the phone and called him. And I said, your competitor down the street gave me a lower price. He lowered his price. Okay? This is how it would be done. I know how to manage people. I know how to organize things. I know how to multitask. And certainly a supervisor has to multitask. That's what I brought to the job. That's what I bring to the job now. Now I have a fuller knowledge. I will never know everything. Every day I am learning new things. And I fully acknowledge that I identified problems in 2009. I started tackling them in 2010 and 11. Each day I identify new problems. That's why I need 2 more years to do those. I'm not going in cold, not knowing anything. Unfortunately, my opponent, while he served for many years as a town attorney, he only saw one aspect of town government, and 2, he hasn't been involved in town government for more than a decade. A lot of what he's been saying is totally out of date. He has no idea what a new comp plan covers. The fact that Yorktown actually has very limited vacant land for new development. He doesn't know about what we've already done to streamline the development process. He has no idea of the new regulations. Faith, I know you're very up on MS4 and stormwater. That's certainly something that didn't exist during his time. That is a serious issue, and that's why I've been working with Northern Westchester municipalities, Putnam and Dutchess. We're doing a regional approach. We negotiated and got $50 million from DEP to help fund us so our taxpayers will not be having to foot the bill for some of these retrofit items that we are mandated to do. And no matter what my opponent says, I don't think he has any clout with EPA in Washington to be able to get rid of that mandate. Okay? And these are the things I bring to the job. And again, this is what the members of the Republican Town Committee saw in my presentation. They saw it in what I've done for 20 months and why they selected me. And this is the message that I bring to voters. Look at my record, look at what I've done, look at my practical, doable suggestions that are saving you hundreds of thousands of dollars.